No one will remember what you did today. There will be no statue, no teary eyes, not even a note tucked in a drawer. The empty chair will remain empty. What you carried in silence, the fear, the love, the fatigue, will be swallowed by a time that spares no one unnamed. And still, here you are, breathing, making coffee, waiting, holding your soul in your hands even if no one sees it. You were taught to be seen. Since childhood, they told you everything must be shared, recorded, validated. That a gesture without an audience is just a failed scene. That a heart without applause is an emotional failure. And you believed it. Learned to shape your soul for someone else's gaze, became a reflection. Never a presence. But there comes a brutal moment, and it comes to all, when no one is watching anymore. Not out of cruelty, just because everyone is carrying their own ruins. It's in that moment you find the real ground. A morning when the light enters through the window, and there's no one to praise it. No camera, no hand, just you, and the invisible task of continuing. Perhaps this is the true sacred, the courage to remain whole when no one is watching. To make the bed, not lie to yourself. Write a letter that will never be sent. Living like this isn't for those who seek glory. It's for those who accepted to become soil, not a display. Root, not announcement. Scar, not altar. Have you ever felt this exhaustion? Of giving yourself fully to a world that never asked if it hurt? So have I. And that's why today, in this shared silence, I offer you a place where your soul needs no explanation. There is a house no one knocks on. It exists in every city, yet no one sees it. The facade is simple, almost faded, and there are no bells or flowers on the windowsills. Inside live those who have stopped waiting to be discovered. Not out of sadness, out of exhaustion. They are the ones who have learned to live with the echo, to set the table even without company, to say good morning to the void with a gentleness only ghosts understand. This house is not made of bricks, it's built of waiting. Each wall is a swallowed silence. Each piece of furniture, a story no one wanted to hear. Inside, everything pulses in slow motion. Hours don't pass, they whisper. And when night falls, the inhabitants of this house wear absence like a second skin. They sit before portraits never taken, hold letters never received, nurture a tenderness no one asked for, yet it keeps growing like weeds through ruins. You may pass this house 1,000 times and never notice, because it doesn't scream, doesn't beg, doesn't attract. It simply remains, like something that knows certain presences don't need proof. They are lives without witnesses, yet with a burning integrity. Because they still turn on the light, still sweep the floor, still water the plants, even with no audience, even with no promise, even with no later. It is there that the quietest faith lives, faith in oneself even without witnesses, the kind of faith that needs no stage, only ground, that doesn't demand followers, only steadiness. And those who survive there no longer ask to be seen. They've simply chosen not to disappear. There are people who move through their days like they walk through a storm without protection. It's not carelessness, it's reverence. Because somewhere along the way, they realized no shelter is forever, and even the sturdiest roofs eventually leak where it hurts the most, so they accepted the rain. Let the weather soak their clothes, their gestures, their eyes. These are the ones who walk without umbrellas. Not because they've given up on staying dry, but because they no longer need to prove they're hurting. The pain in them requires no witness. It simply walks beside them, part of their being. These people don't shout, don't write manifestos, don't beg the world to notice. They've learned that the most honest beauty is not in what is shown, but in what endures unseen. They are the ones who still set the table, even when eating alone, who still change the sheets on Sundays, who still wash the glass with care, as if someone might arrive. They are not performing. They are offering presence, even in the dark. They've become their own altar. And that is the hardest revolution, to live with reverence for something that may never be acknowledged. Inside them lives a courage that doesn't roar but holds, A faith that doesn't preach but continues. A love that doesn't ask for return. It simply offers itself like an ember. They are like old stones at the bottom of a river, smooth, silent, necessary. And even as the water rushes over them daily, they don't lose their shape. Because they were carved by time, not expectation. And maybe you, without knowing, are one of those stones. Maybe you've spent decades hoping to be seen. And now, with no audience, you're discovering a dignity that never needed eyes to exist. There is a point in time when you stop trying. Not out of defeat, but out of maturity. An inner place where the urgency to be recognized gives way to something graver, subtler, more real. The desire to simply be. Without title, without stage, without translation. You enter that place when you realize no explanation will ever reach the depth of what you've lived. That no language can fully render the softness with which you've survived yourself. That's when true life begins. The moment your soul no longer needs approval to be whole. In that place, you stop measuring your gestures by applause. Generosity is no longer a transaction. Care no longer needs reciprocation. Pain doesn't need to be dramatized to be respected. You begin to exist like stones, like fallen trunks in the forest, with quiet dignity. Not because you gave up on the world, but because you understood the world was never big enough to hold you entirely, that there are parts of you that belong to the invisible, that some memories need no telling to be sacred. And what's most beautiful is that, in this state, you start seeing others differently. You notice the hidden glow in strangers' small gestures. You sense the holiness in someone making their bed each day, even when no one sees. You begin to honor the silent presence of those who never ask for anything. And there, quietly, a new kind of community begins, made of souls that don't expose themselves, but recognize each other. You are closer to that place than you think. It begins the moment you stop justifying your existence and begin finally to inhabit it. You are not alone. You've just become invisible to a world that only sees what screams. But there is something older, deeper, truer than being seen. Being faithful to yourself when no one is watching. That is soul. That is temple. That is eternity without display. The life that continues without witnesses is the hardest one to live. Because there are no ovations, no comforts, no heroic narrative. Only the raw constancy of being who you are, even when everything invites you to abandon yourself. But it is also the most sacred life, because it is the only one that doesn't rely on permission to exist. It needs no caption, no likes, no legacy. It simply is, like the mountains that endure the ages without ever being filmed. Those who live like this, silent, whole, persistent, are the true keepers of the world. The ones who still leave water out for the birds, who still pray for those who forgot them, who cry without witnesses and keep working with steady hands, as if meaning still lies ahead, even if no one else believes. You made it here because something in you still pulses with truth, still believes there's meaning in continuing even unseen. And there is. Because every invisible act you offer to the world is resistance against indifference. It's a breath of eternity in the middle of forgetfulness. Remain, not for recognition, but because your soul was born to be an altar, even in the dark. If you felt something you can't quite explain, this video was meant for you. Because some pains have no words but they recognize each other in silence. And some souls don't need to show themselves to reach others. In the comments, write just one phrase: I continue even without witnesses. It's our secret sign, our presence between the unseen. Share this video with someone who also walks unnoticed. Maybe you'll save a soul from quiet surrender. Maybe you'll simply say, I saw you. And that's enough. Subscribe, not for content, but so this space can remain a shelter with no spotlight. Here, your soul needs no justification. It only needs to keep being.